Unicorn Overlord, the hit new game by Vanillaware that everyone can't stop talking about. Made by the same developers as Odin Sphere and 13 Sentinels, this game offers a uniquely beautiful anime art style along with masterfully crafted, vibrant animations to accompany it. A real-time tactical game that urges you to think about terrain, positioning, and even the time of day to win battles. Unicorn Overlord is a phenomenal title that any SRPG fan would love to sink their teeth into. But we're not here to talk about how great the game is. We all know the endless hours of fun this adventure provides, don't we? If you're curious, here's my short review after about 100 hours clocked in. Instead, we're here to talk teams. Some of the best teams, if I do say so myself. So because I didn't burn out creatively after my first video. 74 views, by the way, a lot more than I was expecting. Thank you so much for that. Here are the top 5 teams that carried me throughout the land of Fevrith. Spoiler warning, of course, these are all pretty much endgame builds with endgame characters. Also, disclaimer, I played this game on Expert, just so you know that I'm really good at this game and everything I say should be taken as fact. Leading off this list is one of my personal favorites. A double Griffin squad that specializes in taking down hard to reach enemies and making sure they bulldoze any cavalry standing in their way. Although all of the teams going forward will be 5-man groups, this one can work just as well as a 4-man squad. Meaning you can get to smacking even earlier in the game. Know that these builds are also extremely flexible. There are an insane amount of item combinations, but I'll focus on a few key points that really help these units bring out the best in one another. To start, we've got the lovely Rhaenys here. Feather bows are extremely helpful utility units that can boost allies' initiative as well as, well, you know. Yeah, blindness is definitely an asset. Having her in the front row lets her act as a dodge tank and take full advantage of her tailwind ability, giving a row of flyers 20 initiative after she acts. She also has the passive Aerial Pursuit, letting her follow up after a flying ally attacks. The cherry on top are 2 of her active skills, Photon Arrow and Saint Shot. Photon Arrow allows her to attack 2 enemies, debuff their defense by 50%, and inflict passive seal during the day. Very useful in locking down teams with annoying passives like armored units and enemy flyers. Saint Shot has the ability to deplete 1 PP on an enemy when it lands, 2 if they're ground-based. I have Rhaenys focus archers with this ability to prevent things like Eagle Eye going off and cutting through my front line. For equipment, anything that grants her evasion will definitely help. You'd also want to make sure her PP is at least 3 to be able to pull off Tailwind as well as Shining Light in the same battle. The big damage carries of the team are 2 frontline Griffins. In this instance it's Fran and a custom mercenary Josette. Both will have a similar build and tactics setup, so you can just treat them as the same in this example. The Griffins have one job and they do it well. Hit a row and hit them hard. For the longest time, High Swing will be their best attack. It's a ranged row attack effective against cavalry, allowing you to target squishy backlines before cleaning up any stragglers afterwards. At level 30, however, they get an even stronger version of High Swing, Aerial Smite. Unfortunately, this game has more than its fair share of typos, and this skill is one of them. At first glance, the skill sounds like it'll drain your AP if the target is at 100% HP, but in practice, it actually drains the enemy's AP if they're at 100% HP. So there's no drawback to using this ridiculously strong ability. Make sure it's always first in your tactics list. Between Rhaenys' passive sealing and stealing and the Griffin stripping turns away from healthy foes, squads will deteriorate before they even get the chance to act. The passive skills of the Griffins don't matter too much since we're aiming to kill quickly. Suggested equipment will be more evasive and physical attack boosting items, with a strong recommendation on AP boosting items for more DPS. For the first of the backline units, Aubin makes a fantastic enabler for our flyers. For a good majority of the game, he'll simply be another damage unit, but at level 25 he unlocks a truly amazing ability. Warhorn, a start of battle effect that makes everyone's attacks unguardable. Pretty useful. Aubin's horn is his greatest contribution, as we'll have few other start of battle effects on this team. Outside of that, using Rolling Axe and Widebreaker for more row attacks stacks this team with an onslaught of moves not too many enemies can handle. For his equipment, anything that gives more initiative and physical attack will work, allowing him to lead fights with a Rolling Axe before our flyers clean up. Last but not least is Lex, our resident vanguard. Lex likes guarding. He likes it so much he'll jump in front of others just to do it. His signature skill, Arrow Cover, is one of the key pieces keeping this team from just getting sniped constantly. It allows him to shield an ally from any ranged physical attack and negate the damage to 0. By selecting only flying units as the target, Lex is guaranteed to keep any dangerous arrows or even enemy flyers from our main stars. On top of that, he will also learn Provoke, which is another start of battle effect, but only good situationally. Provoke forces enemies to target Lex if able, but by only using it when archers are present, we can keep our flyers safe without needing to shield them at all. These passes combined essentially eliminate any flying weaknesses this team has. Oh, Lex's attacks? They don't matter. No, seriously, he's hilariously weak. Defender is really the only thing worth noting as it gives more PP on hit, and Lex is a PP boy, through and through. You want to have PP boosting weapons and items on him so he can jump in whenever necessary. Because his passes are so cheap, I'd also recommend throwing in a support item like the Dancer's Bracelet. Being able to boost your front line's damage when you don't need to protect them allows Lex to have a job in every encounter. This team does have a weakness to true strike attacks from units like Swordmasters, so keep that in mind when positioning them in battle.
May this holy strength serve you well.
Freeze!
The next team is all about Yuniefi and her follow-up skill, Snow White Strike. After an ally attacks, she'll follow up on top of inflicting the freeze status. The cherry on top is that it gains 100 potency if the target is already frozen. With 4 other units that can inflict freeze on their own, it just spirals into a frozen free-for-all. Yuniefi's other skills aren't anything to sneeze at either. Everything in her kit is relatively cheap despite its usefulness, so she'll probably have moves to spare by the end of the fight. First is her Mystic Arrow that is specifically made to punch through armored units. If the target is armored, she'll deal 100 magical potency on her attack. As armored units often have abilities that can block arrows, it's especially convenient that she has a way to innately deal with them. Her bread and butter is the Sonic Shaft skill, since it can become ridiculously strong on fast enemies. Sonic Shaft deals 100% of the target's initiative stat as additional damage. That's a free chunk of true damage that scales pretty well towards the late game, where angels just start popping up everywhere. With her other passive, Eagle Eye, she won't miss any of these attacks either, making her helpful in countering thieves and flyers. Her third skill is Glacial Rain, a fun charge skill that also inflicts freeze, but we won't be focusing on that in this build. Lastly is her triple counter. A counter attack that hits 3 targets can be pretty devastating if a row of flyers tries to take her down. For equipment, anything that boosts evasion or crit rate works wonders. The lucky coin was definitely made for her. Her Frost Bloom bow is also really solid. I'd recommend keeping that equipped. Boosting AP and PP could help as well if you manage to get a high enough crit or evasion rate like I have here. Supporting Yuniefi in the front line is Ramona. Restore. She gives Yuniefi PP to spam her follow-up. That's it. I mean, she can heal if it comes down to it, but like the Griffin squad, this team doesn't really want fights to be too drawn out. Stacking her with evasion and maxing out her PP is really all you need. Now for the real combo pieces. Our 2 witches, Yana and Brigitte. Starting with Yana, she'll usually be the one to lead the fight with Quick Cast. Quick Cast grants her max initiative, but I only have it set for when there are no angels present, because then we'll all just have a bad day. By giving her the Ice Storm Staff, she can use the charge skill, Blizzard. It's not especially powerful, but it does hit everyone and inflicts freeze, letting us start off with a fully afflicted enemy team. And since it can't be used instantly, you already know what Brigitte is rocking. Wearing the white cat ear hood, she's our quick impetus user, allowing Yana to act immediately again, bypassing the charge stipulation. After Blizzard, Yana and Brigitte will attack with Ice Coffin, which not only hits a row of enemies, but also deals additional damage if they're already frozen. And if they're not frozen, it freezes them. By leading with these two, more often than not, the enemy won't be moving for a while, if at all. For equipment, Yana should be wearing any magic boosting items as well as AP or PP boosters. If you plan to utilize the Blizzard strategy, your second witch should equip any PP boosting staff along with initiative boosting gear, ensuring she'll go after Yana. Finally, we have our secondary support with Gallagher, but it could be any elven archer honestly. Like Ramona, her role is a small one, but can sometimes clutch fights in certain matchups. Firstly, her Icicle Arrow attack rounds out the assortment of freeze-inducing tactics. Being able to attack 2 enemies at once is especially valuable. Mystic Unfurl is situationally useful when there are armored units present. Having it target Yuniefi will make her Mystic Arrows hit especially hard. One of the best things Gallagher provides though is Pure Field. Although Yana's Quick Cast is another start of battle ability, switching over to Gallagher's skill when fighting things like angels or were-owls will make the team run much smoother. Pure Field puts up a debuff barrier for all allies, allowing you to push through annoying things like Shining Light, Dispel, and any other debuffs that might put a stop to our strategy. For equipment, honestly anything works, but remember, this team has a similar True Strike weakness like the Griffin squad.
This should help the cause.
Right for me!
Not bad.
Number 3 on the chopping block. Everyone's favorite Dark Marquess has her own specialized squad. Baron Guardia is indisputably one of the best units you get in this game, and it's fun to build around her totally balanced kit. She lives for the afflicted status. thrives off it even. So what happens when your entire team can inflict poison, blindness, passive seal, and guard seal? Sanguine Pursuit all day, baby. The skill is not only self-sustained for Berengaria herself, but also an infinite follow-up in the right conditions. Even if her attack misses, she will refund 1 PP to herself as long as the enemy is afflicted. Kinda nuts. With Eye of the Warrior Princess going off at the start of battle, the enemy will be debuffed right away, lowering their attack and initiative. This way your status-inducing partners can get their job going right from the get-go. Her first attack, Death Spin, will damage a row of enemies, inflict stun, and deal additional damage if they're afflicted. Great crowd control move to stop the opponent from potentially ever attacking. Vicious Torment is her next best attack, having a similar affliction condition but only targeting one enemy. It also grants her an additional PP, letting her use another passive skill, Painbringer, to greater effect. Painbringer grants her 1 AP when she is attacked, as well as boosting her own attack stat in the process. Berengaria wants to be up front and in the action, as her just being present will ruin any enemy's day. For equipment, I believe the Hunter's Halberd is a great choice to get the most mileage out of her Sanguine Pursuit. Arguably her best skill. Being able to deal additional damage on follow-up moves is quite powerful. However, any stat boosting axe like the King's Axe could be just as effective. You'll want any attack or crit boosting gear to make the most out of her damage, and at least 1 additional PP so she can utilize all of her passives if the need arises. Like the previous 2 teams, we've got a double helping of one class in the front line to help Berengaria follow up as much as possible. The Werefoxes Dina and Penelope will have similar builds focused on keeping enemies debuffed throughout the fight. One of my favorite combo pieces within this team starts right from the beginning with Berengaria's Eye of the Warrior Princess and the Werefox's Weakness Hunter. When an enemy is debuffed, they will both attack an enemy ignoring 50% of their defense. By setting the target to lowest percentage HP, you will almost always knock one enemy out of the fight instantly. Afterwards, they'll attack with Piercing Lance, an attack that guard seals the enemy. I have their tactics set up so they don't use the same attack on a debuffed enemy, meaning any guard sealed targets will be attacked with passive hold instead. With this setup, if any enemy can live through the onslaught, they would be both guard sealed and passive sealed, making them prime targets for big damage follow-ups. If an enemy happens to be poisoned, Venom Thrust is a nice column piercing attack that deals additional damage to poison targets. Their last 2 passives, Shadow Pursuit and Nocturnal Evade, help keep our front line alive through blindness and guaranteed dodges. Shadow Pursuit is a follow-up skill that blinds an enemy, meaning that Berengaria can activate her follow-up once they follow up with a follow-up from the follow-up to the follow-up. You follow? Nocturnal Evade lets the unit dodge one attack, with the kicker being it refunds them 1 PP at night, potentially infinite evades during the right time of day. With these 3 active skills as well as Shadow Pursuit, our Werefoxes are highly efficient at plague spreading. Equipment wise, I felt the most comfortable maxing out their PP with Sapphire Pendants or any other PP boosting weapons. Weakness Hunter is an expensive skill in a class that can't refund their own PP easily. Again, evasive items will be your best friend, for this is another dodge reliant frontline. Our first backliner and one of my favorite units in the game is my boy Travis. As a thief, he'll be providing a second wave of affliction should the need arise. Primarily, he'll be here as a support for the team through the combo of his active and passive steal attacks, and the Werefox's guard sealing. As long as the enemy doesn't guard the first hit, both active and passive steal will sap them of all their corresponding points. This can be another way to lock down a nasty opponent out of the fight and provide Travis with more PP to use his support skills. For this setup, he comes with the first aid kit, a small heal for any injured units. You could easily sub this in for the large aid kit for a party-wide heal, and I would have done that, but I'm stupid and forgot to switch. But besides that, he's also using a Dancer's Bracelet like Lex for similar reasons, this time boosting our backline damage. While he isn't especially powerful, the utility of the Thief helps keep this team both healthy and able to keep up with even the most dangerous enemy combinations. Equipment wise, evasive items aren't actually that important this time. As Thieves come with a built-in evade and he's in the backline, I'd recommend boosting his base AP and PP for more turns. The large aid kit is a really nice addition I feel is a staple, but the Dancer's Bracelet can be swapped out for anything you might prefer. Finally, the last unit is kind of a flex spot. This is another 4-man squad that functions well, and for the longest time, I ran it as one until the end of the game. Bruno is here because, theming, I guess. But he does end up working pretty well. There are usually 2 moves he'll end up using every fight, Grand Smash and Berserk. As long as he has more than 1 PP, he'll use Berserk to grant himself 1 AP. In addition, he'll also be able to live a lethal blow. Not bad, but not really that important either. Grand Smash is an AoE attack that gains more potency if he's at full HP. It can end up being a pretty devastating move, especially when he's boosted by Travis every time he uses it. The idea behind Bruno's inclusion is that he'll potentially clean up any low HP debuffed units at the end of the fight, since his initiative's so low. Not an important job, but a job nonetheless. For equipment, it's all accuracy and physical boosting gear to ensure he hits, and he hits hard. If you're not too keen on using a Berserker, a Wyvern Master could be a good replacement, as they have another way to split afflictions. One of the glaring weaknesses the team has though are Radiant Knights, Clerics, and Elven units, as they have many ways to prevent debuffs and cleanse them.
Getting stronger by the day.
Make ready.
Number 2, and the team I use the most often to clear maps. This is the team I'm most proud of, and the one that came about when I felt like I truly grasped the mechanics of the game. The team that is truly talk shit, get hit. Virginia's elite squad of heavy hitters. Now there's a lot going on here, so let's start with the lady of the hour herself, Virginia. Virginia comes with a plethora of abilities. Way too many if I'm being honest, but she's able to adapt to most enemies' formations on a dime. Her first 2 active skills, Crusher and Vertical Edge, deal effective damage to armored and flying units respectively. Since some of the most annoying enemies to fight are in either of those 2 categories, she'll cleave through most enemies like it's no big deal. Her third active skill is a 3-hit, unguardable attack that refunds her 1 PP on hit. Lots of great attacks at her disposal, but that's only scratching the surface. Her passive skills are what form the basis of this team. Although not technically her ability, the blue rose shield she comes equipped with lends her the useful passive Royal Guard. With it, she'll block a physical attack with a medium guard and recover 25% of her HP. This is the shield I would highly recommend she keep, as now she has a way to stay healthy mid-combat. The icing on the cake though is her start of battle ability, Iron Veil. She'll grant the team 50% guard rate and 30% physical defense. This will not only make herself physically impenetrable, but also allow any strategies that want you to get hurt become a lot more feasible to pull off. Her last 2 skills, Undying Will and Maiden's Hammer, synergize pretty well with it, though they rarely come up in combat. The most effective piece of gear I've found that suits Virginia perfectly are the Citadel Guard Sabatons. They grant her Guard and Impetus, which gives her 1 AP whenever she blocks an attack. Considering Iron Veil is boosting Considering Iron Veil is boosting her guard rate, and she's the only unit in the game that can equip 2 shields, it's a no-brainer. With all these skills in rotation, you'll have a self-sustaining, constantly attacking, bulky frontliner with 2 forms of effective damage. Virginia is nuts. Outside of the equipment I've already mentioned, pretty much anything can work on her, so feel free to experiment. Second up on the front line is Liza the Shield Shooter. Initially this was actually Fran, as I wanted to go for a Knights of the Rose theme, but Liza proved herself to be a much better fit. Shield shooters can become pretty tanky if you treat them right. Since Virginia already has a flying effective attack, throwing in another bow unit to complement her seemed like the right decision. With 2 forms of flying effectiveness, things like Wyverns and Griffins shouldn't pose much of a threat. With Liza's Heavy Bolt, that's especially true, since it gains 100 potency if she's in the front row. Which, she is. So, it's good. If there are no flyers, however, I have her use Toxic Bolt to inflict poison. And if there are no enemies with any actions left, then she just fires off a Power Bolt. Honestly though, her attacks are not why she's here. She's support for when things are dicey. Shield shooters get the unique ability Aid Cover, which is similar to the Vanguard skill, except it doesn't negate damage, it heals your ally. If Virginia or any backliners are way too low on HP, Liza can step in and heal them to get them back on their feet. I only have her target units below 25%, however, as Virginia is the one most likely to be hurt, and she already has a way to heal herself. Liza also comes with Medical Aid, which is a row heal that becomes more effective if you're below 50% HP. With her Great Shield and Iron Veil in effect, we've got a tanky healer able to scrap with the best of them. For equipment, there are a few special accessories I would use to keep the team afloat. The Wind Fairy's Bell lets her use Sylphic Barrier. This is the Elven Fencer ability, letting one ally unit dodge any physical ranged attack once. I have Liza target Miriam in the backline to protect her from flying units, since this team has a pretty low initiative stat. Pairing this with the Azure Crest Great Shield for more PP solidifies Liza's more support-oriented role. Also not imperative, but boosting her HP helps her bulk quite a bit considering her base is pretty low. Next up is Kitra, our breaker. She hits things, and she hits them really hard. Like Liza, she complements Virginia by matching her armored effectiveness. God forbid any armored knights line up in a row, you'll end up seeing huge numbers on the board. Her role is pretty simple, just proc Enrage as much as possible before swinging. Whenever an ally is attacked, Enrage boosts Kitra's attack and accuracy by 20%. And this is a stacking effect. Every time we take a hit, Kitra comes this much closer to assaulting blowing the enemy in the face. If there are no rows for her to attack, Assaulting Blow grants her 1 AP if the target is defeated. This can spiral pretty quickly if she gets 1 or 2 Enrage boosts. Stacking her with attack boosting or accuracy boosting gear is the way to go. I personally keep her AP at 3 minimum, so she can deal her row attack and still have the ability to steamroll. Miriam is our resident healer in magic protection. Saint's Blade and Hash lets her keep her PP up, and row heal is exactly what it sounds like. Her passives keep our frontline safe from mages and the like, as Iron Veil is boosting our physical defense only. Without Miriam here, this team would crumble to even 1 mage. Row Barrier and Magic Barrier have saved Virginia many times. With her more supportive role, I would recommend putting on gear that protects her from any status ailments. Specifically Stun, as that could stop her from being able to heal at the proper time. With Iron Veil in effect, the Clerics or Knights medallions are pretty good at keeping her guard rate consistent and increasing her bulk. The final piece of this amazing team is Magellan. A sleeper character I really grew to like by the end of the game. Anyone that's played this game already knows what's up with sellswords, and this team embraces it to the fullest. Every time an ally is hit, Magellan can counterattack. If that counterattack lands, he refunds 1 PP. As long as he doesn't miss, he will never stop attacking. We double down on this passive by giving him the Dragonbone Blade. It tanks his initiative, but grants him 1 base PP. And you know, that's okay because we want him to go last anyway. He's got the ability Killing Chain, another form of Assaulting Blow. If he can kill, he'll get 1 AP back, and since he's going last, anything that has been following Slash to death will get swept up with ease. His other 2 attacks, Bastard's Cross and Heavy Slash, deal ridiculous damage to anything that manages to bypass all the counterattacks. But with the Parrying Shield boosting counterattack skills by 50, and the Retaliation Earrings adding an additional 40, the likelihood is low. Topping it off with the Mirrored Spectacles increasing his accuracy, Magellan is a counterattacking menace to be very afraid of. This setup is the only time I'd say to copy it 1-for-1 because I believe this gear is bringing out the very best out of sellswords and their counter-heavy playstyle. Overall, this team excels at tanking and turning enemy attacks into more damage. The major weaknesses would definitely be an onslaught of magic users or any debuff focused units like thieves or feather bows.
As if I could lose.
For the number 1 team, I'm sure to no one's surprise, it's Elaine and his entourage. Elaine, he's the best unit in the game, bar none. He works well with pretty much any team composition and can switch between being a more offensive or defensive presence on the fly. Unfortunately, I don't have the most complex setup here, it's just Spinning Edge Unga Bunga nonsense. Spinning Edge is a 2-hit row attack that ignores 50% of the target's defense. Yeah. What were they thinking? Once you get this attack, it's pretty much game over. Most enemies can't stand up to the damage. To double down on the insanity, I've outfitted Elaine with the Sniper's Amber Lens. It's a very silly item that grants his attacks guaranteed hit and crit at the cost of 2 PP. With his personal Unicorn Blade and the ring preventing him from being debuffed, nothing is going to save you when it's time to start swinging. As Elaine is such a flexible unit, almost anything can work on him. I do think the Swinging Edge and Amber Lens combo is probably the best way to get damage out of him though. And to his right, we have the beautiful... Rosalinda. Truthfully, her full potential is being squandered by being in a team not catered to her, but she still worked wonders during my initial playthrough. Rosalinda is a Swiss Army knife of a unit, with flying effectiveness, adaptive damage, debuff cleansing, stun inducing, and board wiping skills all at her disposal. On this team, her main objective was to put up at least 2 fairies through her Primus Edge and Elemental Impetus skills, then go for an Elemental Roar if Elaine couldn't clean up. And it usually worked. That's why I married her. She really does make the best use of the Ring of the Maiden, as well as the King's Lance, since her skills scale both off of her physical and magical attack. Stacking her with the Dream Crown lets her pump out damage not many units can tank. With Elaine protecting her with his Luminous Guard and Rosalinda healing with Curing Heal in a pinch, these two are the power couple that literally couldn't be stopped. Then we've got the 3rd, 4th, and 5th wheels in the back. All support units that help the frontline deal more damage or heal after the fighting's done. Gilbert here combos with Elaine specifically by using the Gambler's Coin. With Inspiration, a lane will receive 30% attack and 50% crit damage. The drawback is supposed to be a loss of 50 accuracy, but since we have the sniper's amber lens, it doesn't even matter. With offensive order to top it off, Gilbert is here to make sure we're getting the most out of our attacks. Selvi offers Rosalinda magic support whenever Sylphic Wind goes off. With the Familiar's Choker boosting an ally's magic attack by 50% at the cost of the user losing the same amount, Rosalinda can throw out a mini version of Elemental Roar for less setup. This usually only comes up when there are flying enemies present. Other than that, Selvi can lower enemy defense and guard seal to ensure the second round of Swinging Edge hits even harder. Lastly, we've got Scarlet. She heals. She does a little spin when she heals. That's kind of cute, I guess. Yeah, she's just a healer. And those are 5 of the teams that I found the most helpful in Unicorn Overlord. I'm curious to know if anyone else has any teams or combos they're especially fond of. Any underrated units or interactions you don't see many people talking about. Leave them all in the comments. Or maybe I'm possibly incorrect about how good some of these teams are. If you have an argument against my objectively correct opinions, I'd love to hear those too. Also, I'm streaming a true Zenoivan run of this game right now, so subscribe and stick around if you're interested in backseating live. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Until then, peace out.
I can't fail my sacred mission.
I shall surpass Ludwig yet.
I'll need to study this further.